Back to ESO Daily. After experiencing technical difficulties, Mystic Raven finds himself completely clueless. Just saying. Anyways, so I did have some technical difficulties. Like everything, just like my internet froze up, the game, everything. So I had to do a complete reboot. Doesn't happen a lot, but wow, it sucked. And I know it wasn't ZeniMax, so it was awesome. It wasn't Elder Scrolls. So just saying, was not, because it was my internet too. So something technical different, something going on there. All right, so obviously I'm no longer in that group. It sucks, but I'm hoping I'm not going to be on a penalty here from my dungeon timer, and I am by 5 minutes. Oh, that sucks. I've got things to do, man. What is it? Spindle Clutch 2, Dire Frost, and what was it? A Maz. Yeah. Nothing I'm really needing. Maybe Dire Frost. I don't know. Anyways, guys. So, there's a couple things that, a lot of, like I said, I've been on public test. It's going great. I'll tell you what, I can't give specifics. I can't say anything about it. But, guys, it's great. It is. It's fun. A lot of fun. A lot of fun. Lots of fun, man. And I will tell you guys, like, it kind of it takes me back to when I first played Elder Scrolls. I get that nostalgic feeling, and it's amazing in certain aspects to kind of have, like, rekindle memories of your forgotten days of Elder Scrolls of long, long ago. And as many people, some people just don't get happy with changes, and life's about change. There, I feel like there's something special when it comes to Elder Scrolls, games, even online console games, computer games, the originals. There's something that, like, when I was a kid, I played Dungeons and Dragons, and my first realm I was introduced to in D&D was, of course, Forgotten Realms. We all know about Forgotten Realms if you were a Dungeons and Dragons player. Even if you were a D&D gamer, you probably have heard Forgotten Realms. So that was my first experience, but it wasn't my favorite campaign. My favorite campaign, it was Ravenloft, and that is how I actually got my handle Mystic Raven, because we played Ravenloft, and Ravenloft was my favorite. And I actually had this kind of class that was kind of between a cleric and a foreseer, and we called it a mystic. And it was kind of a class we just kind of offshoot, so it was like a hybrid class that we kind of went with, from, like, two different specific classes. And that's how I did it. It was Mystic, and then I was in Raven Loft. So, of course, I actually named my character Mystic Raven. Because I could see everything that was going on within, well, not everything, but certain things that was going on within the veil of Ravenloft. And Ravenloft is a confusing place that people, were thrown into, from other realms or dimensions. And it was kind of interesting. So that's how I actually got my username, Mystic Raven. So if anybody ever wanted to know, how'd you come up with Mystic Raven? It was actually when I was probably like maybe about 14 years old. And I just got exposed to Dungeons and Dragons, and I came up with Mystic Raven. So that's how Mystic Ravens was born. And then, of course, online gamer tags, everything was Mystic Raven. So when people were, like, copying my names and stuff, everybody's like, are you the original Mystic Raven? And I'm like, yes, I assure you, I am the original. So a lot of players now will grab my gamer tag in certain games. But there, for the longest time, any MMO you ever played and you step foot, if you saw Mystic Raven, more than likely that was me. More than likely. Nowadays, it's hard. People will just snatch up gamer tags left and right. just left and right. But yeah, so there's a little history. But yeah, definitely, guys, Morrowind. I'm telling you guys, devs do such a good job, man. I mean, just kind of like, like I said, it just takes me back to those moments, those first moments in any. I even think that when you take a look at things with the lore, right? Not with Morrowind, but even the way the game stands as is prior to this upcoming change. There's so much that you can put yourself into if you allow yourself to do that. I mean, if you don't want to be involved in the lore, you don't have to be, right? You can just play it, kind of skip. And sometimes I do that. I've read it, I've done it. But I love that the little things that Elder Scrolls or ZeniMax and Bethesda have continued with their games, like the books. Knowledge is power. So when you would read books, you could learn skills, increasing your capability. I love that. I love the little bits of lore that sometimes you'll find in a book that if you just pay attention for a second, you'll catch a glimpse of something. So like a hint or, a past page. And there's a lot in there. And I really think that ZeniMax and Bethesda, especially Bethesda, they could capitalize by having somebody write books. Like World of Warcraft has books based on the lore of their realm, of their game. And I think ZeniMax and Bethesda could do huge because, when you talk about the Daedric Princes, the creation behind Elder Scrolls, behind Tamriel, the wars, the Emperocy, the rise of the Aldmeri Dominion, the Daggerfall Covenant, the Pact, all of these different aspects throughout the timelines just play such an important role. And I think, you could do just really well with it. I mean, I'd probably buy them, the books, just for the lore. Just you tying things together, that was amazing. Like that was one of my favorite things when I played D&D. So I not only did I play Dungeons and Dragons, like tabletop, with the books and the dice. I was a nerd. Yes, I was a nerd. I also was a dungeon master. I was a DM, and when I did my own realms, I loved reading books on lores of whatever realm I was doing. And Dungeons and Dragons offered that. Salvatore is one of my favorite authors of all time. The Dark Elf Trilogy is probably one of my favorite books. I'm so surprised that has never been converted into a movie, the Dark Elf Trilogy. And I always tell people, if you are a fantasy fan and you have not read the Dark Elf Trilogy, you're missing out. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, you should really look into Salvatore. Salvatore is just amazing. He's an amazing writer. And definitely not, it's pretty, yeah, I wouldn't suggest handing it to your 10 or 14-year-old there, guys. But amazing stuff, man. Amazing. Excuse me. But, yeah, I definitely, that's the whole thing for me, personally. Taken back in those days. And I guess that's why fantasy always, I have something to a fantasy game. And ZeniMax does really good. Their staff members do such a good job of keeping everything, back. And like I said, testing this kind of brings back that nostalgia for me. That feeling. Because let's face it, no matter how many bugs were in any of their games, right? And I think every game you would find some sort of weird glitch, right? You would. It it was a noticeable once you found it. My favorite would have to be the damn mount bug in Oblivion. Don't even get me started on that. Sometimes I just refuse to jump on a mount. But not that it happened often, but when it did, it just pissed me off. But anyways, it was the lore. It was the atmosphere, that feeling. And I always tell people, man, you can't take those moments and dismiss them. They become a part of your memories, your experience. Now, I'll be honest here, guys. Like, the whole timeline thing kind of, like, confuses me sometimes. Okay? Because Elder Scrolls universe does have dragons. We see reborns all the time in this game. But from my understanding, now this is just my understanding, the dragons have periods of hibernation. And usually like in Skyrim, there was an awakening. For the dragons, meaning the point where they wake up, they breed, blah 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 blah, and of course they're hunted. So, the funny thing for me is, like, are we potentially ever going to see a dragon or an awakening in upcoming ESO? Is it possible? I'm unaware of the timeline. Why didn't he pull this? No. Now, yeah, great, dude. Thank you very much for ignoring the original ads. Oh, my God. That's not normal. Shouldn't die too much. But yeah, that would be really cool. I'll be honest, guys. If we experience awakening at any time and we get a couple of dungeons with some dragons and some really crazy shit like that, you're not gonna ever hear me complain about it. I want the hard mechanics to it. Put the time in mechanics to it. Phase 1, it's up in the air, or it's down on the ground doing its fire thing, its ice thing, whatever type of dragon it is, whatever. Phase 2, it's going to, do some kind of tail swipe, or, some sort of, wing, flurry or some shit. Just go all out. Do whatever you want to do. Make it unpredictable. But that would be so cool, man. Or even maybe, intentionally, finding a layer where it's hibernating, and all of a sudden, bam, you disturb its hibernation. That would be cool too. Because as it stands, we have yet to see any dragons, any. And I don't know if that's completely not gonna happen or what. And also, I'd like to see a couple more lores with the Daedric princes. But we have Sheer Gorath, of course we do. And of course we had Molag Bal, and we had Meridia, and that whole storyline, which was cool. But was really cool, actually. Very well done. But I like to see a couple of the other, Daedric princes, make an appearance. That would be kind of cool. Play to the lore, man, because the Daedric princes are, from the beginning of this whole experience. You could tie in so much more with that lore, and of course, Sheer Gorath. I think that character really sets up some of the stages. I'd like to see him a little bit more kind of just popping in and out, because that's what he does. You know, he's unexpected. And I do like that that they keep to certain characters. You know, you'll see a reemergence of that character somewhere along the line, and I like that. Now, I probably would have done this on like a bet, given the fact, but so Trinamac just gives me a free heal, a little damaging effect. Yeah, guys, like I said, I'm really looking forward to seeing what besides Morrowind, what ZeniMax is going to throw at us next. You know, I think this is the beginning. You know, it's the beginning of what is to come. And for people who are not happy with, you know, some of these changes, like I said, I wouldn't get caught up too much into it. It is manageable, you know, and they're always going to keep the game playable. You know, it's one thing. If it becomes too much, they're not going to risk, you know, their community adversely affecting their community where they can't play content. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, let's be a little practical. So, but honestly, I think it's the start of, you know, something that, you know, we could be seeing down the road as far as like lore and storyline and, you know, what they could be introducing to us in the near future, and all these different possibilities. Because keep in mind, guys, we have a lot of the map that's not even available at this moment, and we know for a fact that in Elder Scrolls universe that there is always something going on with these other areas. So what they could be throwing at us in the near future, who knows? It could be already in the pipeline. It could be just, you know, on the board. But honestly, guys, you know, I'm really happy with, you know, what direction this game's heading in. You know, I mean, when will they ever get me to stop playing it? Well, at this point in time, the only way that probably people could get rid of me in this game is if ZeniMax was like, we got to get rid of Mystic Raven. Let's find a way to get rid of him. But no, I mean, as of now, but it's just a joke, and I'm hoping they don't do that. But you know, I'm not going anywhere. There's not any MMOs out. Maybe one. Deltia's cover. I'm a big Sandbox fan. Okay, I'll be honest with you guys. Sandbox MMOs, I started out with Ultima Online. Okay, I was Sandbox. Then I went to EverQuest. EverQuest was good. 3D, you know, first, you know, 3D graphics for an MMO, you know, secondary MMO. But the thing about it is, guys, Sandbox MMOing has always been my favorite, because I was never told what I could do or what I was limited to. And Elder Scrolls, I like the fact that they've kept a lot of sandbox elements in this, meaning every class can play every role. Your gear kind of, you know, can, you know, make it possible for you to achieve things that typically you would not be able to do. So they have kept a lot of sandbox elements, and that's why I continue to play Elder Scrolls, because of those factors. Because if it was just standard class based with a linear progression, I probably would have said, this is not my Elder Scrolls. This is not the game I grew up playing, or any game of Elder Scrolls I've ever played. But since they went in the direction that they did and they kept true to what the Elder Scrolls universe is about, I went with it. You know, ooh, infused, but I already have. I think I have an infused on me. But so those, you know, sandbox games are very, very special to me. Not class-based games. I mean, somebody might ask me, hey, you know, Mystic, can you go ahead and test this for us and, you know, run up this game and we'll give you alpha access and stuff. And those are only a couple, very few devs who personally know me, who still have my, you know, information. I don't sign up anymore for any more tests. But I'll sign up for newsletters. Keep maybe my eye on something because, there's a lot of failed sandbox games out there who promise this, who promise that, and then all of a sudden they come out and it's a disaster. You know, you know, ever since I lost SWG, I've given up the whole dream that somebody will bring back a sandbox game to me. Because I'm a thinker, man. I don't like being told what I can do. I like to say, hey, can I do this? Can I pull this off? Can I make this happen? That's the type of player I am. I hate, like, you know, basically being told, well, you got to do this to get that. You have to go here to get this. You know, I'm not that type of player. But yeah, ZeniMax is going to retain my business for a while, a long while, unless they do something completely bonkers, unless they're trying to sabotage their own product, which I doubt they ever will. A lot of people probably would take these patch notes as I'm doing that, but I assure you guys it's not. We were, you know, a couple of us were playing around, and you know, and certain players just had, you know, nothing but positive, you know, things. And I think once again, it's a perspective. You know, it's just all it is. It's just people's different, you know, take on things. But I always tell people, try something, man. You never know if you like something unless you try it. You know, that's why I tell my girls. I tell people, like, my girls have tried sushi, and my one daughter loves specific rolls, where my other daughter only will eat one specific roll, period. The other one's like, yeah, I like this roll, I like that roll. And the other one's like, I will only eat one type of sushi, period. And of course it's tuna based. Go figure. But experience, guys. Life is about experiences. You never know unless you try. You know, try it out. See if it's something that you're into. If you like it, great. If you don't, hey man, at least you gave it a shot. Like I said, the only reason I'm referencing sushi, how many kids, now they were kids, they weren't even teenagers yet when they tried their first rolls. And how many kids were willing to say, you know, what is this? And you tell them, hey, yeah, it's raw fish. And they'll be like, oh, yeah, let me try it. Of course they're going to be like, Dad, what are you giving me again? You're giving me raw fish. And all of a sudden you see the look on their face, like they're just disgusted. And that's kind of what I'm reminded of that when I read people's comments about Morrowind patch notes. Like they're complaining, they got that look of disgust, like you what I tell my girls the first time that they ate sushi, like, or getting prepared to try it. Now of course you're not going to force them. I never would force my girls, but after you talk to them, be like, you know, you might not like it, but you never know unless you take a bite. So try it, you know. And my one daughter, you start them off slow, something easy. They're like, oh, you know, it wasn't that bad. And then all of a sudden, they will decide if they want to experiment and put their, you know, try something else and go a little further. So You know, I always tell people all you have to do is get them to put their toes in the water. You know, test it. They'll decide how deep they can go or want to go, but you don't throw them in. You know, you'll scar people for life doing that, where they'll never want to swim again. It's called baby steps for a reason, people. It's called baby steps for a reason.
There will be no place for rabble like you when the Pelengairs rule Wayrest.
There's my Trinamac. Blowing the war horn, reapplying my buffs. Remember, the biggest thing about DK Healer is always keeping that Igneous Shield applied, guys. That's very, very important to mitigate the damage prior to healing with the DK. Alright? That's the functionality of it. Now, being Argonian, I also hit that potion, and that's going to give me my Magicka regen, up my regen on my Magicka. Regen sets are going to play a very important role coming up. Same thing with your Mundus. I don't need that. I think I got the purple already. So, anyways, there it is, guys. You know, I hope that, you know, I didn't bore you guys too much. And it's kind of like I said, it makes it interesting to see what potentially ZOS is going to bring to us, you know, after Morrowind. So let's like take Morrowind and put it off to the side now, just for a second. What could ZOS be bringing us in the future? You know, could we be looking at, you know, dragons, more Daedric princes? There, you know, endless possibilities, guys. So if you are a true Elder Scrolls fan, you know, I encourage you guys to, you know, get through it, man. You know, if anything, like I said, there's always going to be changes. You know, always going to be. But if you enjoy what the game really is, as far as the lore, the atmosphere, like I said, I have yet to see one Elder Scrolls even console game without any bugs. And I still continue to play them. Why? Because what they offered me in the lore, what they offered me in the atmosphere, it just, there was no other game that actually was that rich. It had that much depth, in my opinion. And that's what made Elder Scrolls such fond memories. Very fond memories. So, and if you're like me, you know, like I said, I didn't jump into Elder Scrolls in the beginning when it launched on PC. And I heard about it, and we all knew about it. I have a post from, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, on Rift, when we were talking about Elder Scrolls announcement being in, you know, we were excited, but at the same time, when we heard some of the, I didn't even want to sign up for test because I didn't want anything to ruin my experience with Elder Scrolls. Everything, as I've always had fond memories of Elder Scrolls. So once I heard they've ironed out a couple of things, and it was available, and I knew it was available on console. It was already a year in console after I picked it up, but they were ironing things out. I said, you know, what a perfect time. It's been on console. They're ironing things out. What a perfect time now more than ever to get involved with one of my favorite games. And I'm going to go ahead and, you know, go with the Elder Scrolls Online and see what they did. Now, I was a little disappointed when I first logged because I didn't read anything about the classes. I didn't want to be influenced by any outside. I didn't want any outside influences. None. I wanted my first-hand experience to be my own. I avoided, the only thing I read was like they're having bug issues with this, but as far as any content, anything, I steered away from it. And when I first logged in, I was a little disappointed. Class base. And then all of a sudden, I said, "Okay, it's okay. Let's see what they did. Let's see what they did." And all of a sudden, I went in and I realized I picked up pretty quick when I saw the gear sets. And I like the fact that they allow players to craft gear that can still be used in these dungeons. That necessarily dungeon gear isn't the best per se. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And I love that fact that you could, you know, take a set that would normally go towards a medium armor wear and you could make it heavy and still, you know, retain those attributes. So they put the sandbox element in there. So to me, it was like, wow, you know, okay, I see what you guys did. I see. All right. I'm going to have fun with this. And that's what I did. You know, I started off with the Nightblade, and I'm looking down and I'm like, you know, if it's true, if this is Elder Scrolls, they should be able to, every class should be able to play every role. Now, that's before I even knew that the devs had already said this since the beginning. But once I tested it, bam, I was like, okay, this is Elder Scrolls. This is Elder Scrolls. So, yeah, so good stuff. Just, you know, it is what it is, guys. Things change. So, you know, keep with it. If you know, I encourage you guys to keep with it. But if you don't, you are your own individual. You have every right to do as you please. But I'm going to be staying around for a little while. But I do want to thank you guys for your time. If you have any questions or comments, please post below. Once again and always, thank you, and have a nice day.